And welcome. Thank you so much, Shauna. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Inclusion 101 webinar. We're so happy that you are here. Thank you for joining us for the last DI 101 of the year. Some housekeeping things before we get started. As you heard, the presentation is being recorded, and the recording, presentation slides, and additional resources will be shared after this webinar. We also have a Q&A section at the end, so if you do have a question, please put it in the Q&A chat and we will answer that in the end during that Q&A section. In the chat, there will be a link to the presentation slides for you to follow along if that would be helpful for you, as well as a link to a NDIA resource doc where it has all of the resources that we're going to be talking about today and additional resources that NDIA has created to kind of help you along with your journey. Here is today's agenda. So for the hour, we're going to first talk about NDIA, the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. Then we'll jump right into terms. We're going to do an activity to help understand the barriers of digital inclusion. And then after that, we're going to talk about key solutions that digital inclusion programmers are doing. We'll also be talking about the digital navigator model, as well as the importance and role of digital inclusion coalitions. And then afterwards, Shauna will talk about policy, and I will wrap it up with, encouraging you all to join the NDIA community, and then again, that Q&A session at the end. All right, so I will introduce myself. I am Pamela Rosales, she, they. I am the Training and Community Engagement Manager with NDIA. I'm based out here in Madison, Wisconsin, and I do these digital inclusion trainings bi-monthly, so every other month. And I also help manage our wonderful community. And partnered with me is Shauna. Shauna, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Shauna Edson. I'm the Senior Policy Manager here at NDIA. So it's great to see you today.
Perfect. And Shauna will help with the policy section. No better person to help me with that. Awesome. All right. So NDIA, if you are new to the community or you have stumbled on the National Digital Inclusion website, welcome. NDIA, we stand for the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, and we advance digital equity by supporting community programs and equipping policymakers to act. We are a nonprofit, and we represent and serve more than 1,900 U.S. affiliates, including 41 tribal entities and organizations in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia, American Samoa, Northern Mariana Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands for affordable broadband, access to devices, and digital skills training and support. We, here at NDIA, we have a lot of knowledge sharing forums that people can connect with each other, learn from one another, such as our monthly community calls, our working group meetings, and our very popular NDIA listserv. So after learning from our community about major themes that are happening on the ground, we take those themes and we align our advocacy efforts with that. All right, so let's get started into the definitions. Okay, so first we have the digital divide. It is the gap between those who have affordable access, skills, and support to effectively engage online and those who do not. So how does this show up, right? The digital divide, it's existed since the beginning of the internet, but the pandemic really brought massive awareness to how crucial it is to have access to affordable high-speed internet and to participate in various aspects of life, right? The importance that internet brings into our daily lives. And the pandemic also exposed the stark reality that many communities have in which they don't have access to, the internet, they don't have access to digital skills or support to engage effectively online in the way that they want to. And that looks like people having to cut their internet service because it's too expensive, students falling behind in class because they couldn't connect to their virtual classroom or submit or read their assignments, not being able to participate in the competitive job market because someone doesn't own a device or have the essential digital skills to apply for jobs, and communities not having access to connect to the internet because the infrastructure isn't there. So why does this gap exist? One of the causes stems from widespread underinvestment in broadband infrastructure in low-income communities, also known as digital redlining. Our friends over at the Markup, they found that in 15 cities that were historically redlined areas, they experienced disproportionately slow internet speeds compared to other areas. So again, digital redlining, it's that discrimination by internet service providers, or ISPs for short, in deployment, maintenance, upgrade, or delivery of services. All right, next up we have the term digital equity, which we like to call the goal. So when NDIA started in 2015, one of our first priorities was to collaborate with our community to develop language that accurately reflected the essential work being done on the ground. And this collaborative effort led to the creation of these terms like digital equity and digital inclusion. And our community has always been our primary source in developing vocabulary around this movement. So digital equity, the definition, it's a condition where everyone in our community can get online and use the internet in the way that they want to. So with digital equity, it comes with power for all of our community members to engage, participate, and be active members in our society. So this can look like people being able to educate themselves, advocate for, and find community around social issues that are important to them. It also looks like people who are experiencing homelessness, for folks to be able to use their phones to find community resources, housing, being able to enroll in government programs, and staying connected to their close-knit community. It also looks like people having access to telehealth services, being able to get a diagnosis, pay their medical bill online, or schedule appointments online. But also, thinking about the ways that internet can enrich our own lives, and even for you individually, right? So one example I like to share is my dad learning that you can create playlists on YouTube, because he thought that you have to individually search each video every time. And he asked me, is there a way that you can have all these videos, like it would be on a CD? And I said, yeah, you can create a playlist. And so when I taught him how to do that, he went ham on all the different playlists that he created. I mean, he created playlists on his favorite Filipino songs growing up. He created playlists on his favorite movie soundtracks, you name it. And after that, I asked him, so how do you feel now that you know how to do this? And he said, empowered. And that's the quality that having access to the internet and the skills and being comfortable with your device, that's what it can bring to our communities. And I'm sure you've experienced that yourself, the empowerment that it can bring, so thinking about other ways that looks like, so learning your native language, for example, so that you can connect with your grandma or your grandpa in a deeper way, being able to book a vacation online and have an eat, pray, love moment for yourself, creating a reservation so you can have a date night or things like that. Those are all the unique ways that the internet enriches our lives, and digital equity allows us to make sure that everybody is able to experience that if they want to. All right, so why digital equity and not the term equality? To put it simply, equality just doesn't fully serve our community. So the terminology here is equality. That is where each individual or a group is given the same resources or opportunities, which is demonstrated in this image, right? On both images have 6 books. Equality on the left, everybody's getting the same 3 books. And nothing is really changing for them. They're all just taller because they're all standing on 3 books. But when you look at the term equity, it recognizes that individuals or communities have different circumstances and barriers, which then allows the resources to be effectively distributed so that everybody can reach an equal outcome. So on the right side of the picture, whereas equity, there's still 6 amount of books, like there's still the same amount of resources, but it's allocated effectively and efficiently so that everybody is kind of starting in the same space, right? And digital equity, it means that we are meeting people, we are meeting our community members where they are at currently. So it's an opportunity for us to understand the specific, unique challenges and barriers that prevent people from getting online and using the internet the way that they want to. And barriers can look different between communities, right? A rural community will have a very different barrier and challenges and experience compared to an urban community. So equity forces us to not make assumptions of what the barriers of each community, what they are, and then therefore it takes away the assumption for us to make when we are providing resources for that community, right? Because some communities are experiencing systemic barriers like digital redlining that I mentioned earlier. Other communities might be struggling with high cost of the internet. They can't afford it, or the cost is too high for their budget. And other communities might be having experiences with things like limited digital skills on how to use their internet. Some communities might not have the device that they need, or in some communities might prefer to learn different things, right? Some communities might prefer to learn how to use an app, and not necessarily so much to focus on having access to the internet because they already have that. So when it comes to digital inclusion, how we do this is by learning what those unique needs of our community. So for example, that can be, learning that we need to have multilingual trainers if we're, providing digital navigator services or digital skills training. We need to make sure that our trainers are speaking with the same language of our target audience, or that they coming from that same lived experience. Other things to consider is, if you're having an event, is that event accessible to the community that you're trying to serve, right? Is it in a location that they feel safe in? Is it in a location where it's easy to access through public transportation? Is your event free? Does your event, is it held at a time or a date where your community can attend? For example, if you have a Muslim community and that's kind of the big population that you have, making sure that you're working with the community leaders there to know, hey, maybe I should not schedule the event on a Saturday because that's going to be Eid, right? Or, maybe partnering with other, uh, programs there so that you can have an event that is making sure that everybody feels welcomed, and it's, making sure that they feel like, hey, this community event is for me. And lastly, it's digital inclusion. So this is what we like to call the work, right? It's essentially the activities that's necessary to achieve digital equity, and it's the work that you're all doing. So it's, digital inclusion programs that are providing access to reliable and affordable high-speed internet. It's programs that are providing affordable and appropriate devices that are matching the needs of our community members. And it's also providing those digital skills training and continued support. So we're going to go into detail about what that looks like. But first, we're going to do an activity that kind of demonstrates the different prongs when we're considering how, what the unique barriers are in our community. So there will be a link in the chat for you to go to a Padlet link. And if you're not able to participate through the Padlet link, you can share your answers in the chat, and I'll make sure to eye that as well. So head over to the Padlet link, and while you're all kind of looking there, I want you all to think about this scenario and this answer. So scenario number one, your organization distributed hotspot devices to your community, and you found that only 40% of those devices were used. Why do you think that is? So go ahead and share some answers. You could put that in the Padlet or in the chat, and while you do that, I'm going to pause my screen and get it to the Padlet activity so we can all see what answers you're all coming up with. Okay, so this is the Padlet activity. If you are new to Padlet, if you want to add a note, you can just click on this plus sign image right here. And if you click that, then you'll be able to type in your answer. All right, so some folks are already putting their answers in. Some people are saying people already had internet at home. Correct. People don't know how to use them. That's another one. The skills aren't there. Overwhelmed. Perfect. No cell service in their community. Okay. There weren't any trainings for the hotspot devices available in advance of distribution. Perfect, perfect. I'm going to check the chat just in case folks aren't able, people don't know how to set it up. Perfect. Thank you, Cheryl. Summer's also sharing lack of awareness. Devices were simply distributed or dropped off without any notice as to what it was. That's great. There's no kind of initial outreach to the community saying, hey, we're doing this thing. If you want to learn what a hotspot is, here is kind of a information session, or here's a flyer so you can see what it is and if it's important for you. In the chat, people, Constance says, did not know how to use a device. Exactly. Perfect. Somebody said didn't need it when it was available. Yes, somebody had mentioned trust. Exactly. You're all kind of getting at all the different problems I was hoping y'all to get. So this is amazing. People forgot that they received one. Exactly. Yeah. So, you're all kind of addressing the things like, there isn't a device that they have at home to connect the hotspot to, right? So if you have a hotspot, great. But if you don't have a laptop or a tablet or a smartphone or any other device to connect that hotspot to, then it's almost just another thing that they can't really use. Somebody had also shared that the instructions weren't there. So the instruction manual, it wasn't clear or it wasn't provided in their native language. Let's say you have a majority of Tagalog speakers there, but there was no instructions in Tagalog for them to understand. Well, then there's that missed opportunity and probably why 40% of them didn't use it. People are also talking about not having support, not having proper training on how to use a hotspot, how to connect it to your device, what a hotspot is, how to make sure that your information is safe. Fear of potential unlisted fees. Exactly. So there's a lot of fear and misconception or just questions that people might have that there was nobody there to help answer. There was no session. There might not be a digital navigator there to provide answers or support, or just somebody in the program to help, kind of alleviate some of the fears, to help trust that, hey, if you're going to use this hotspot, your data and your information isn't going to be like, leaked or anything like that. Hidden fees, somebody also talked about that. And then also people might, maybe like as somebody said, maybe the primary need is not internet access for that community. Maybe it's actually digital skills. Maybe they want to learn how to use an app because they want to get on a dating app. Maybe that's their focus. Okay. Maybe it's a device. They actually need laptops or Chromebooks and not necessarily the internet access there. This is really great. And y'all, this is the first time we're kind of doing this activity. So thank you all for participating. And so the second question I have, which let me just update edit at the top so you all can see it. Okay. So you can still participate. It's still stay on the same link. But this scenario number 2 is you're offering a digital skills class, but people aren't picking up the skills and or your attendance is dropping off. So why do you think that is? What are some, possible reasons for why people aren't picking up those skills or they are just not showing up to the digital skills class? And again, you can share your answer on the Padlet, or you can also share it in the chat as well. This is great. Yes, somebody said it's too hard to understand. People get discouraged. Exactly. You might not have assessed the students or your community of like where they are at with their skills. That's number one. You don't know where their foundation is. But number two, you might not have asked them what they wanted to learn. Somebody said frustration and lack of meeting learners where they are. Exactly. It could also be that the content is like going super fast. If you're not, you know what they want to learn, but it's going at a very rapid rate. You're not allowing them to actually learn it and apply it. That will be enough to get frustrated. and then enough for them to not attend. Somebody said no childcare, which yes, exactly. If people, if your target audience are parents and they're not able to attend because there's no childcare provided or they're not able to have childcare, then exactly, they will not attend that class. Joy in the chat says they don't know how to sign up for the classes. Perfect. Joy, yes, you are getting to the outreach aspect of it. Where did you advertise the class? Is it only online? Did you, go to your community bulletin boards? And on those flyers, is it accessible for them to actually attend and sign up for those classes? And Cheryl says feeling intimidated. And Rashid says you may have to manually sign them up. Exactly. Not familiar, too much information. When the weather isn't bad. And winter months are tougher to navigate. Yes, so thank you all. You are all sharing some really great answers here, and this is really great. It's perfect. Right, you guys are talking about making sure that you are taking into consideration the weather. Also, making sure that the content is relevant to the folks, right? Like if you're teaching them about Microsoft Word, when they actually want to use WhatsApp, then there's going to be a shift there. Material might be too advanced for students, or it might be going too slow. So making sure that you're understanding what the necessary pace should be. And also, if you're not accommodating different learning styles, as well as different accessibility needs and language needs. Thank you, Jim. Hey, Jim, thanks for being here. Classes in English only, exactly. Majority of your students are speaking a different language, making sure that you have like an instructor that speaks that same language for them to understand and or be able to provide resources. Awesome, perfect. Well, we will head back to the slides. So give me 1 second. This was great. Thank you all for participating in that. And hopefully that kind of helped, kind of give examples for the case of digital equity. All right, so these are the different elements of digital inclusion, which we like to say the road to digital equity. And so that is, again, those programs that will help make sure that our community reaches digital equity. So it's affordable high-speed internet, helping our community members with affordable, appropriate devices, providing ongoing technical support, and digital skills training. All right. And so here are just the different barriers that we find when it comes to digital inclusion and why people aren't able to access the internet. So with broadband, right, it can be expensive, services can be unreliable. Let's say the weather is going out or things like that, or there's too many people on the same network. And then also, again, that digital redlining that I was talking about earlier. With devices, again, cost is kind of a, recurring theme here with both broadband and devices. It can be unaffordable for them. They might not know that refurbishing centers exist. And outdated software, they have a device, but the software isn't up to date, so they can't use it for work or for class because they can't download Zoom or the appropriate software to get connected to their mental health provider, things like that. And also the device isn't matching the needs of the user. And then also with the digital skills, some of the barriers that exist there is that there are limited skills. There's fear and shame around learning new digital skills. They might be very intimidated and might get overwhelmed very easily. And then also the trainings are inaccessible, both physically and also just the way that the content and the teaching method as well. So again, the solution here is making sure that our community has access to affordable broadband, access to affordable low-cost devices, as well as digital skills training. So let's talk about broadband. So affordable and low-cost broadband. All right. So the definition of broadband is the transmission of wide bandwidth data over a high-speed internet connection. And in March 2024, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, defines the minimum standard for broadband speeds as 100 megabits per second for downloading and 20 megabits per second for uploading. And this still leads us to that same question of if households have access to the internet, then why aren't they getting a home internet subscription? And this is where the term broadband adoption comes in. All right, so broadband adoption, it is daily access to the internet at speeds, quality, and capacity that is necessary to accomplish, regular daily tasks like paying your utility bills or streaming a new episode of your, favorite show or streaming an episode of your favorite podcast. Again, doing that with the digital skills necessary to, navigate the internet safely and on a personal device on a secure and convenient network. And digital inclusion programs that focus on access to low cost and affordable internet connectivity. They may be as technical as community-owned internet service providers, directly providing internet connectivity or providing access to internet in community spaces or in buildings. Or these programs could also provide guidance, education, and support to community members about the available low-cost internet plans there. So this is a great resource that NDIA has created for you all. Really great for those who are helping community members find low-cost internet plans. So NDIA, we compiled a list of current offers from internet service providers that have plans with speeds at or above the threshold of 100 megabits for downloading and 20 megabits for uploading, with a cost, the maximum monthly subscription of $30 a month, as well as the plans on there include either no data caps or have data caps above 1 terabyte. And another great resource is the Digital Inclusion Program Manual, which we recently launched. So NDIA partnered with Dell Technologies and members of our awesome community to create a resource full of best practices and recommendations for our community, our digital inclusion community. So in this manual, it's a great place to start. You're going to learn best practices for developing a digital inclusion program, recommendations and examples for program models and techniques, as well as guidance for making sure that your program is sustainable. All right. So the next thing we'll talk about is devices. So device ownership and access is essential for digital equity. And this specific area of digital inclusion focuses on matching community members with devices that match their needs. So digital inclusion programs that focus on devices help community members by providing free and low-cost devices, as well as helping them with maintaining those devices and providing tech support. So some programs do a learn to earn model. This is where students who, let's say, finish a digital skills class will receive a device, kind of like an incentive to finish that class. There are also computer refurbishing and recycling programs. So this can be a source for community members to get their hands on quality, low-cost computers. And these programs also, if they have like a location, in-person location, they serve as a place for community members to learn more about device hardware. So this kind of diagram here, this little chart, it just shows the pros and cons of the 3 kind of main popular devices. And so it's always kind of nice to know that. So if you are matching somebody with a device that matches what they're looking for, you kind of have like a nice framework here. And the link in the chat, if you click on that, it's the expanding device availability for broadband. NDIA collaborated with AARP and the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. And so you'll be able to see a more descriptive chart here. This is kind of where I took this information. So with a mobile phone, they're small and portable, which is great. They usually have a long battery life. However, it doesn't replace a laptop. So if you're going to be working from home or taking classes, you really want to have a laptop, or at least by minimum a tablet. Doing it on your phone just won't cut it. So if your main focus is using apps and doing light internet browsing, this is a great option for that. Tablets, with that bigger screen, it's nice to have that touch screen because that keyboard provides more accessibility with that larger display and an easier user interface. It's great for entertainment, like binge watching Netflix or things like that. Also has a nice long battery life. However, you can only make calls on it if you also have that cellular plan. So folks might think that they can make a call on a tablet. You can only if you have that cellular data plan on there. And there are certain apps that won't work for a tablet. So that's also something to consider. And then a laptop, if your community member is looking for a device where they can work from home, then this is going to be most likely the device that they will need. There's large storage files. It does have a shorter battery life, and affordability wise, out of the three, they are the most expensive. And so other things to consider outside of just like these kind of three main devices is other kind of, devices and gadgets and tools that you need to use the internet. So that can look like having a second monitor. If you are working from home or even in the office, most of the time you might already have a second monitor. So you understand kind of, the uh, how essential a second monitor is for doing your job. It could also look like having a microphone or a keyboard or a better camera if the camera on your laptop isn't really up to par for what you need it for. And also like things like a portable charger and also cybersecurity training, right? Paying for that so you can learn how to make sure that you are keeping your device safe and what to look out for. So an affiliate that we like to highlight here is Camden Institute. They are a really great example of a community program that focuses on devices. So they provide low-cost devices to community members and nonprofits, which helps support the device and digital inclusion ecosystem. They also build digital skills capacity and tech support through their digital skills classes as well. All right. And the next thing we're going to talk about is digital skills training. So digital skills, this is constantly evolving. And digital skills programs, they can include classes for community members. It also looks like providing one-on-one support, kind of like a digital navigator. And it also could look like a community support helpline and much more. And so again, it's important not to assume the proficiency level of your community based on whatever identifier they have. So doing a needs assessment to figure out where folks are at is crucial. And also needing to learn what they want to learn, right? That's essential too when you're developing your content. And when I say earlier that it's not, it's important not to assume the proficiency level, like for example, based on age, right? If just because somebody has a certain age, whether they are an older adult or a younger individual, we should not assume what their proficiency level is at. Right, this assumption that younger folks they have better digital skills, we can't assume that, right? Because again, that homework gap existed and we saw that happening in the pandemic where people they might not have a device at home or they didn't have internet connection, so they weren't able to like build up on those digital skills. So at NDIA, we recommend the Essential Digital Skills Framework. This is intended to support adults seeking to improve their digital skills. So this includes skills like knowing how to turn your device on and off, knowing how to check the battery of your device and knowing when it needs to be recharged. Also knowing what the different controls of your device does. Where's the home button? How do you increase and decrease the volume? How do you turn it off? And also things like how to update your password, and also how to, use a browser and making sure that you are, finding websites safely and you're not just clicking, for example, going on your inbox and clicking the links in your spam folder, having the skills to know that that's not going to be the safest thing for your device and also best use of your time. So one great example here is the Community Tech Network. So they hire culturally competent fluent speakers for their digital skills classes. So they hire staff specifically to serve their learners. So they offer classes in English, Spanish, Cantonese, Mandarin, Tagalog, Korean, Vietnamese, and Russian. So again, making sure that those digital skills classes is in a language that their communities can understand. So it goes past just translating a flyer, right? It's again, meeting people where they are at, even linguistically. And a great resource is the Digital Skills Curriculum blog post. So in this post, you will find resources to help develop a digital skills framework if that's kind of where you're at. There's also a list of free online digital skills programs that includes multilingual programs, special features, as well as facilitator support. So definitely check that out if you are looking to kind of experimenting on what digital skills courses you want to use. And digital navigators. All right, so we've covered important aspects of digital inclusion work like broadband adoption, affordable devices, and digital skills. And one crucial element in connecting our communities is digital navigators. So shout out to the digital navigators that are in the room with us right now. Digital navigators are individuals who address the whole digital inclusion process with community members through repeated interactions. So this looks like helping a community member find an affordable internet plan, helping our community members find a refurbished or low-cost device, or matching the best device with what they are looking to do. And it also looks like helping our community members learn and expand their digital skills. It's a holistic approach that's glued together by empathy. And I love to share this quote by Dave Sevick, the executive director of Computer Reach. Computer Reach refurbishes computers and sends digital navigators into the home in both urban and rural areas throughout Pennsylvania. And he said on a podcast that when you're a digital navigator, it's 80% social work and 20% tech. And I love that. It's really highlighting that unique skill of empathy, because you could learn a digital skill, but it's really, having that empathy, meeting the person where they're at, understanding what their unique barriers and struggles are, and then adjusting according to it. And a best practice here is the Denver Public Library. So digital navigators are coming from the communities that they serve. They're very intentional of making sure that the digital navigators are, having that lived experience. They also provide resources to the greater digital navigator community. And again, they refine and update their model, kind of, making sure that it's up to date. All right, and then this is also the digital navigator page. Definitely check this out if you are a digital navigator. There is the more information about the digital navigator model. There's a digital navigator 101 webinar. In there you will find skills assessments, follow-up survey, a baseline digital navigator job description, an intake form, exit survey, and also a digital navigator toolkit. I also want to plug, and we'll talk more about our working groups that are available, but there is a digital navigator working group, and also encourage you all to, if you are not active on our listserv, if you are a digital navigator or you have digital navigator program questions, to definitely ask that question in our community, and our community will definitely help you out. All right. So the last thing I will talk about is digital inclusion coalitions. So what are they? They are a collective of community organizations that share the common concern of digital inclusion. And what's great about this is that you are not alone in your work. These digital inclusion coalitions are comprised of local governments, libraries, education institutions, nonprofit community programs, housing authorities, workforce development, sometimes internet service providers, and also social service and civic organizations. So they have these three kind of unique effects. So coalitions can provide awareness about their community's digital inclusion issues and needs. They can also create an alignment. So coalitions have this unique position where they can align the different community organizations' perspective and make sure that it's focused on digital inclusion work. And there's also this great network effect that can happen there, right? If you're part of your local coalition or your statewide coalition, you can learn from each other, learn what is happening, learn some best practices, and also there's potential for partnerships to exist there. All right. And this is a map of the digital inclusion coalitions that registered themselves during our 2022 coalition survey. We recently put out a 2024 coalition survey. It wrapped up last month. So definitely be on the lookout on our coalitions page within the beginning of next year, so in a few months. Because what we're going to do is we're going to publish a summary of those findings on our coalition webpage. And along there, you're going to see a new directory and an interactive map of coalitions. So, you can check that out. And if you're not part of a coalition, you'll be able to see, hey, does one exist near me? And one great coalition is the Y Zone. All right, so the Westchester County Association, they partnered with the city of Yonkers, Yonkers Partners in Education, Fordham University, and the STEM Alliance. Their digital navigator program. And what they did is they helped eligible Yonker residents in applying for the Affordable Connect ACP, Affordable Connectivity Program. And because of this coalition's partnerships, they were able to increase the clients' growth in financial literacy, as well as healthcare literacy, and also build up their workforce development skills. So they were able to use the internet to start a business or use the internet to learn how to save money. And this increased the participants' relationship with the internet. 94% of them said that they were able to stay in touch with their family and friends because of this program and this coalition's work. And they were also able to attend local community meetings and be involved in that way, and also save time on some day-to-day activities. So another great resource for you is our Digital Inclusion Trailblazers program. So definitely check out our Trailblazers page. And what are they? They are municipal, county, or regional governments that are paving the way and providing excellent models for digital equity, digital inclusive communities. So they demonstrate how local governments can support their own digital inclusion ecosystem. So definitely check it out. It kind of serves as a open and free knowledge database for digital inclusion resources and information by local governments. So you can see what local governments, what their digital inclusion, what their plan looks like if they have one. That you can also see survey templates, job descriptions, and what their unique digital equity strategies are. I see here Kay is asking when the 2024 Trailblazers will be announced. I believe early January. Yeah. And then, yeah. All right. Next up is Shauna to talk about policy. So Shauna, take it away.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk about some policy that is really relevant to digital equity and may impact the work that you see happening in the next couple of years around digital equity. So I'm going to start out by talking about the Digital Equity Act, or the DEA. So the DEA was authorized by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021. And within the DEA, there are 3 buckets of funding: the planning grant, the capacity grant, and the competitive grant programs. So the first set of funds, which was the Digital Equity Act State Planning Grant Program, that program has ended, and the result is now all states and territories have a digital equity plan. The State Digital Equity Capacity Grant Program is the second set of funds that were available. Applications for states has already closed. The first state award was made to Nevada in June of this year, and awards are continuously being made on a rolling basis. A bunch came out last week. I think we're just over 20 states so far, and a couple territories. The Native Entities Capacity Grant Program is part of the capacity grant, but their program's a little different in that it opened on September 25th, but doesn't close until February 7th of 2025. And lastly, there's the Competitive Grant Program, which began on July 24th with the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, was opened. And applications were due in September of this year. And so we can expect to, NTI has stated they expect to start awards of winter of this year, which is 2024. So that is coming up very soon. Okay, next slide. So I'll spend a few minutes talking about the State Digital Equity Capacity Grant Program. NTI received all applications for the program, with $840 million in grant funding available to states, territories, and Native entities. States will use these funds to put their digital equity plans into action. And this matters to the NDIA community because you'll see new digital inclusion activities and programs emerge during the next couple of years. And states may award subgrants to organizations doing digital equity work in their state. Okay, next slide. So like I said, over the past 2 years, all states and territories have gone through this rigorous process, planning process to write their digital equity plans. So once they get these funds are awarded, states can then begin the activities, programs, and subgrants to support the strategies and barriers to digital equity listed in the plan. But NTIA created guidelines for how these funds may be used. They're looking for strategies and applications that include focusing on the covered populations, implementing measurable strategies by collecting and analyzing data to show the success of the activities of the program, encouraging long-lasting and meaningful change. This means they want to see sustainable programs that will last beyond the duration of the grant period, and engaging stakeholders or folks that are their focus audiences to ensure the activities, the digital inclusion activities, are supporting the people that they serve. Which Pamela talked a lot about earlier with digital inclusion activities. Okay, next slide. So states and territories are allowed to create subgrants for their capacity grant award to entities that are eligible to help them implement their state digital equity plan. Subawards can support the implementation of the plan the state's created. They can facilitate digital inclusion activities that align with the plan, but maybe aren't stated directly. They must report their digital inclusion activities to the state. So some states may choose not to create subgrant programs. Each subgrant program, including things like eligibility, who can apply for the grant, and how large allocation amounts are, how much funds you can get, can vary by state. And states and territories will align their program with the goals outlined in their plans. So if you are working for an organization that is looking for grant funding, I would keep an eye out for what your state plans to do for if they plan to offer those state subawards. Okay, so the next slide. The Native Entities Capacity Grant Program, like I mentioned, is part of the State Capacity Grant Award, but it is a little different, specific to Native entities. There's $45.3 million available to Native entities, with grants ranging between $500,000 to $2 million. And these grants are competitive, which means that not everyone who applies will get funding. Okay, the next slide. And some key things, NTIA expects to begin making awards to Native entities in the summer of 2025 that will also be issued most likely on a rolling basis. And the funds last for 5 years. Okay, next slide. Some things that are allowed, they're allowed to use the grant funds on. Native entities can use these funds without involvement of the states. So they do not have to work with the state on creating their project. However, if their goals are aligned with that of the state, their digital inclusion activities can align and be mentioned in their plans. And funds must be used for digital equity planning and doing digital inclusion activities listed in the plan, or just doing digital inclusion activities, but they can't be used just to create digital equity funds. Okay, next slide. So the last bucket of funding in the DEA is the competitive grant program. So like I said, the application window closed already in September, but I want to cover this program because you'll likely see new programs coming up possibly in your areas over the next several years that received funding through this program. Next slide. We can skip this one, the next slide. Okay, the award amounts will range for this grant program between $5 and $12 million. NTIA did say they would accept applications outside of this range. However, they must have an explanation for why they need more funds or less funds than that. And awards for US territories will not exceed $2.5 million. Next slide. So the funds for this must include digital inclusion activities that align with the state plans, enhance or go above and beyond the state plan, or address barriers the state digital equity plan failed to identify. And this is where knowing the unique and individual digital inclusion needs and ways to support your community are really important, because states have a really great overview of everything that's going on across the state, but sometimes they might miss details that you all know about the digital inclusion needs of your community. Some of the application details, like the state capacity grant program, NDIA encourages engagement with covered populations to co-create innovative solutions to meet their needs. Next slide. So NDIA will be looking for proposals whose strategy include the same activities that we listed with the capacity grant. Next slide. So eligible uses for these funding, for the capacity grant funding, include digital inclusion activities that benefit the covered populations, activities that lead to broadband adoption for covered populations, which can include things like education and employment opportunities, training programs for basic, advanced, and applied skills. So I just want to note that that includes a range of training programs, so folks can think about what that looks like for your community. Other digital inclusion workforce development programs. You may use the funds for public computer centers for covered populations through community anchor institutions or any other project with a special okay. I do want to make a quick note about this program. The money for the program isn't fully out yet, so it may be at risk in the future. Okay, next slide. So digital discrimination, the rules officially went into effect in March of 2024. So this is stepping out of the Digital Equity Act into a different ruling. The rule covers any aspect of broadband internet access service that impedes, impairs, or denies equal access to that service. This could look like discrimination in pricing, customer service, and network infrastructure upgrades. The rules protect consumers even if there was no intent to discriminate. This means that if somebody was impacted by the discrimination, the provider will be responsible even if the discrimination was not intentional. And individuals in community can and should file with the FCC, file complaints, I'm sorry, with the FCC. Okay, next slide. And broadband labels. As of October 10th of this year, all internet service providers, or ISPs, must display their broadband labels at the point of purchase. So the broadband labels include information on pricing, introductory rates, data allowances, performance metrics, and this is still included here, the Affordable Connectivity Program participation. However, that program has been sunsetted. It no longer has funding, so but that was one of the requirements. So I would encourage you to check and see if you can find a broadband label for your service plan. This is a great educational tool. Okay, next slide. And one great resource that we've created, which would be, if you're interested in looking at, it's a state digital equity implementation manual. It has great practice, best practices and tips for developing and refining implementation strategies, recommendations for structuring and putting into action some grant programs, as well as performance measurement, program evaluation, and sustainability. So this could be something that could be a resource for you as well. All right, and with that, I'm gonna pass it back to Pamela.
Thank you, Shauna. Just two more slides and then we'll open up for questions. So we do have working groups available, and to join them, you have to be part of our NDIA community, and just a few other things too, depending on the working group. So we have a Digital Inclusion Coalition working group. So if you are part of a coalition and you're part of the community, definitely we'd love to have you there. And if you are interested, you could either reach out to me or also Paulo. Paulo Balboa, our senior programs manager, is in charge of leading the kind of coalition work that we're doing. We also have a Digital Navigator working group. We have a listserv. Well, all of the working groups have a listserv, and then they also meet monthly. And so if you are interested in being part of a Digital Navigator working group, you have to be an NDIA affiliate as well as be part of a Digital Navigator program. And if you are interested in joining that, then reach out to Abby. And then our state digital equity cohort, we also have a working group for that. So you have to be part of and you have to be part of the NDA community as well as be part of your state broadband office, and contact Ryan for more information there. And just two more things. So we invite you all to attend our Net Inclusion 2025 conference. It's going to be in Gila River Indian Community. And the closest airport there is going to be Phoenix. And the date will be May 20 through 22nd of next year, so 2025. Definitely register. We want to see you there. We love to see you there. Again, in-person events. It's going to be an in-person event, and it's going to be a great place for you to network, to meet other digital inclusion practitioners. And we have great sessions and plenaries that are focusing on policy, that are focusing on digital navigator programs and how to make sure that your digital inclusion program is equitable for all communities. And there's a lot of networking opportunities there as well. And if you are not part of our community, please join. Again, you are not alone in your work. We are here for you, and we have a really great, robust community where if you ask a question on the listserv, people will most likely give their answer. And so if you become an affiliate, then you get access to our very popular listserv with free resources, research, and tools. Also, you'll get access to our monthly community calls. And our December community call is actually going to be this Friday, Friday the 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And the focus for that call is going to be the future of digital equity, of the Digital Equity Act competitive grant program, and how we can work together to defend its necessity. And so if you have any questions about that, our awesome policy director, Amy Huffman, will be there to kind of guide that discussion and answer questions as well. And then you'll also have access to our monthly newsletter. All right. I want to thank you all for being here, participating. It was a really great. We have our contact information here. You can reach out to me, Pamela, or Shauna. And we do have a few minutes. So we shout out to Shauna for answering most of the questions in the chat. I did see that somebody had asked, for those who weren't able to attend this, how are you going to get the recording? I will be sending out the recording as well as the presentation slides and additional resources to everybody who had registered for this webinar. So expect that email soon. And yes, regarding the question about different kind of when we were doing the activities, all of those kind of answers and scenarios that we were going through, those are all stuff that we have heard and learned from our community. So they're not necessarily kind of a theoretical thing. It's more of like, that's just what we're hearing from our community of, the barriers that are existing there. And also, I'd really encourage you all to read your state and local digital equity plan, because that would also kind of give you insight on what the barriers look like in your community. So that's also kind of another tip there. And definitely check out our Trailblazers page for some of those resources that could also help. Does anybody have any questions that has not been answered? I'm just scanning through the chat one more time. Can we connect here? Yeah. Nathan, definitely you could reach out to me, and I'm happy to meet with you and answer any questions or I also encourage all of you to, again, join our community and introduce yourselves to the listserv, and whatever questions that you're having as you're going along with your digital inclusion program or starting off your journey, you can ask it in the listserv. Yeah, Damien, the question of, is there a database, other members where we can talk? Yep, it is that listserv. So we use Groups.io, that's our listserv platform. But yeah, if you join our community and you're able to be a friend or an affiliate, you can connect with other members on our listserv and you have access to our community there. Thank you. Awesome. When is the next NDIA session? We don't have a 102 scheduled. I believe we will have a digital navigator 101 coming up within either January, February time, I believe. However, all of the events, NDIA events, you can find that on our NDIA events page, and we also share that on our social media and our listserv too. So whatever webinars are coming out, you'll definitely hear it on our listserv. Awesome. All right, y'all. Well, this wraps it up. We are now at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central Time.